Hello, everybody. Welcome to Perspectives of Change. I'm your host, Sarika Kharbanda. And today, once again, we have a very special topic and a very special guest with us. As again, before I get to the topic and the guest, let's introduce the show Perspectives of Change. At Perspectives of Change, we are dedicated to exploring how to nudge change forward by understanding and valuing multiple perspectives, because our perspective as a change agent could be just one of many perspectives out there. With that short introduction, I want to quickly get to our guest for the day and our topic. So let me first introduce this interesting title. We call it The Power of Failure, Unveiling Wisdom from Fail Conf. What it is, I have no idea yet. For bringing more insights to this amazing, powerful topic of the power of failure, we have as our guest Rucha Kapare. Hi, Rucha.
Hello, Sarika, and hello, everyone.
And I think it's really exciting. I always say this at the podcast. So Rucha is actually dialing in from the same city that I am in. It's
Yes.
Pune. Okay, sorry. Something just hung. I thought maybe both of us just got hung in this. Anyway, but that's good. It's a good tech glitch to come in the middle. Anyway.
Yep.
So welcome, Rucha. And before I, get into talking about the topic, I'd love for you to give us an amazing introduction of yourself, because I'm sure for the kind of experience you have, I am not going to do justice to your introduction. So I leave you to do your introduction.
Thank you so much, Sarika. And first of all, thank you for having me on this podcast. For you know me quite well, but then for all our viewers, I'm Rucha Kapare, and I'm based out of Pune, the same city where Sarika is in. And professionally, I head the global team on DEI data, but again, it's DEI for researchers. We usually talk about DEI from an employee perspective, but I work in a field where I use data and technology. So I'm still very much that person. A lot of people ask me, "Hey, why DEI all of a sudden?" But it's all about DEI for research and ensuring that research is diverse. It comes from diverse perspectives and it's also consumed by diverse people. And why is it important? Because everything that we do is research. Basically, the research of yesterday is the lives that we live in today. Be the technology we use, your laptop, cell phones, or even the vaccines that you take. And imagine this is being researched by people who are either from the same geography or gender, basically having similar perspectives. The world would not be the same place. So that's what I focus on, solving problem of biases and ensuring the research is diverse and equitable using data and technology. I'm an agile enthusiast, which is also why like Sarika and I met in one of the conferences, and it's been quite a few years now, but I'm glad we are still in touch. And yeah, apart from that, I've been a business analyst. That's something that I love. I'm still a BA by heart. Personally, love the city, love Pune, and love to travel, love to read. That's pretty much it. I am on LinkedIn. I love to write as well sometimes. I love what I write, but it's always nice to hear from you all. That's me.
Awesome. Love that introduction. And it was nice for you to take us back into where we met. And I still remember it was pre-COVID, right? The last conference that we met in Bangalore at Conrad, the Sparking Business Agility Conference.
Yes.
And you were doing facilitation on one of the liberating structures, if I remember correctly. And
Absolutely.
and that's something that we should bring you for yet another podcast. I still have that on my mind. I haven't forgotten about it, but today is a start. Awesome. So without further ado, I think I have this amazing question that has been literally poking my brains right now, and I want to throw it out there and ask you. Tell us something about FailConf, right? What is this? Give us a backdrop on it. Why FailConf and what is it?
Okay, let me start with a story. It's been a few years that I watched a video on YouTube And this person was talking about like failures they've had in their professional journey, and some learnings from it. And it was almost like a stand-up comedy.
Okay.
It was that great. Some people have the superpower of looking at failures in retro and having the ability to even not just learn from it, but not take it very seriously and also inspire others. And that's what struck a chord with me. And I was like, why don't we explore this concept at scale for individuals, for organizations, which is where I started experimenting with it. And the first thing that I did is I spoke with a group of people who were interested in exploring this. But for that, again, as you asked, I also had to like think about like what format do you do this in, because the one that I'd heard was like an individual thing. I didn't know the whole context in which it was conducted. It was just a short video. But when I thought about it deeper, I felt it's very important for individuals to um, talk about their failures, to talk about the learnings they've had from it. Just to put things in perspective, whenever you work on something, what are the possible outcomes? It's either you succeed at it or you fail at it, right?
Sure. There's a
And
50% chance there.
there's a 50% chance. Uh, Success, while it makes you complacent sometimes, failure disheartens you, right? But then if you don't, while at one place you're complacent, the other you are disheartened and you don't want to do about it, where's all the learning? The
Hmm.
learning is definitely going to come from a place of failure. And I look at it like a cycle. So you try something, there are two outcomes. You could either succeed or you fail, but it's more often the failures that teach you things, and then eventually you succeed. And the cycle should continue, which is where I thought about this concept. And again, it's not new. Like I've seen it in multiple places. I'm just trying to do it at scale, and I'm trying to put a bit of a structure to it for me to run it in my organization, in my city, and also bring a structure where people can do it in the organizations. And we can talk a bit about that later. But now coming on to the why of it. So again, stories are always good to hear. As humans, we are storytelling creatures, right? From like Stone Age, where you see wall paintings. We've always, people always like a good story, and that reflects in why we are so smitten by series or television series or movies, or even books for that matter. So, one is stories inspire, and if there's a learning that people have had and they share it, you don't always have to learn from your own mistakes. Sometimes you can learn from others' mistakes as well. Individually, it helps you reflect. And I feel reflection is a great tool, otherwise, also, even if you're not looking at it from a perspective of normalizing failure conference. So, reflection, it helps you shift perspectives, because once you've reflected, you're not going to leave it there, you're going to take some action on it. So, it's also a part of the learning process. And what else? Learning from your own failures, others' failures, and it also creates a culture of learning, right? Culture of small improvements. I always say, like, how do you eat an elephant? Is like one bite at a time. And that's exactly how it helps you build on things iteratively. And the most important for me, I feel, which is a win win for individuals as well as organizations, is the experimental mindset. So, a lot of times we see organizations set up innovation departments. But if you penalize people for experimenting, the outcome of which is going to be some innovation, having a department is not a bad idea, but that creating that space where you give people a safe space to experiment, even if they fail, you try and support them. Of course, like you can't keep on repeating the same thing, but at least in the initial days, it promotes a culture of innovation, according to me. So these are some of the whys that I can think of. And I'm pretty sure this is just my perspective. The more diverse perspectives people bring into it, there are going to be a lot more benefits.
I love this. It's already very intriguing for me, and I am forced to ask you what you just shared a couple seconds ago or a minute ago, I think it'll be very interesting to hear on the format of this Fail Conf that you've come up with, because you rightly said it's about the psychological safety that people feel in that space. It starts with that. I mean, first of all, failure is not a very positive word, right? For the cultures I've worked with and I still work with, failure could not look very positive in many ways, right? So, first of all, that itself is a tough challenge. And I've run quite a few, you and I both know each other from conferences, and you know how it is when we talk of failures in a conference, that too in front of like hundreds of people. So imagine that. And then smaller spaces are, of course, safer, they feel more secure, and you've been trying this out in your own organization too. So tell us a little about two things here is what I'm asking. The safe space, the psychological safe space that gets created or that you enable and you create, and second, which probably are connected, is the format of this.
Okay, that's a very good question. So let me start with how I started with it after I saw the video and I thought of a format. So I kind of tried to do an experiment as well. There is a business analysis community in my organization. It's a very close community. It's a wonderful safe space where people experiment a lot, they learn a lot. And I remember this was during the pandemic. Of course, all of us were virtual first. Um, what we did is, and it's a community of around 40 people. We said that, hey, we're planning to run this event. It was more like a meetup, virtual meetup for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And we had decided on the speakers already. So we opened the nominations within the group. It was not something that we came in, we gave the context, and we invited speakers. There was a bit of a planning. Also, for the same reasons where people don't like to talk about failures. And imagine your manager is going to be in the same context, probably. Your team members are going to be there in the same context. And how is it that you talk about failures then? How would they perceive you? It's not that people don't fail, everyone fails, but still talking about it is such a big taboo. But thankfully, this group was very, very close knit already. And we decided to experiment a bit with the format. So we took in around 10 to 11 nominations beforehand. We gave them a suggestive format where we said that this is the format where you talk about what the failure was, what did you learn from it, and now what is it that you do differently. Again, we also explained a bit of a storytelling aspect where the typical guideline that we follow, that there's a conflict with a character. So the character is the central character. There's a conflict, and then there's overcoming of that conflict. This was the prep we did before the event. On the day of the event, very important, as a host, I did some context setting through a short ice-breaking activity just to make everyone comfortable. But then also I showed a few videos which explain the importance of failures. And I'm happy to share those links with you. These are like 2.5 minute clips. But it's always sometimes nice to hear such things, even though they're like similar things from someone who is, an established personality in those fields. So this was a video of Harsha Bogle talking about like failures. And I quite liked it. So I shared it. That did some amazing context setting. And then after that, very, very importantly, I spoke to people about how it is important that you need to uphold confidentiality. Whatever is discussed here stays here. No recording of the session, because some of the stories were also like personal stories. You can click pictures, of course, for social media or for your own liking with consent. And what we also did is, because it was just an experiment during the session itself, and every speaker shared their stories, we did an insight generation session. So literally in a minute after each story was presented, we just asked like, what is the one insight or aha moment that you've had from the story? So it's not feedback on the person, it's what do you feel about the story? And there were almost like, if you imagine 30 to 40 short comments captured on each of the story. And
Nice.
that was so powerful. And it was very enriching even for the speakers. So while the speakers gave something to the people in return also gave something to the speakers at the end of the session. So that's how we set up the safe space. But in terms of the format, if you ask me, we tweaked it a bit. So this was a virtual setting, and the learnings from it we incorporated. So now, as it stands, the format is a little different. My preference usually, if you don't know the audience, is to do it in person.
Okay. That was going to be my other question. So is this
Yeah.
only in person or is this only virtual? Because you mentioned virtual, you started off there. So you're also saying in person is a possibility.
Yes. So in person is also, it's a possibility and it's a preference. That's also a suggestion that I would have, especially if the audience don't know about this concept or they don't even know each other. Like it's not a close community like the one that I had with the BAs. So there the people knew each other. And like I know Sarika is going to come and talk about the stories. I'm already like a big supporter and I'm going to like I empathize, I relate all the more with you. Now you are even a bigger inspiration for me because I didn't know this aspect of you. But imagine you're doing it on a floor where the audience might not know each other. So that's what we do right now. After this virtual conference, we designed like a in-person conference because thankfully everything had opened and we had the privilege of meeting people in person again. So now the way we design it is for the first one especially, we still went with um, getting people selected. Like by the word of mouth, I reached out to senior leaders and asked for people who are the people who they would nominate from their teams. In terms of audience, I usually try to keep it diverse, like a good mix of some entry level interns or even juniors, some highly experienced people, also leaders. I
Hmm.
ensured that my MD came and spoke, and she was very supportive as well, because it's important for leaders to be a bit vulnerable. That also shows the human side to people. So that's about the audience. On the day as well, again, a short icebreaker, context setting. I shared my personal story to make it a little relatable. And then we had around 7 to 8 stories with a story less than 5 minutes. Again, a suggestive format. People put up a slide because we were in person, but the slides were mostly pictures.
Okay.
It was a single slide, but it was open to people if they want to put a chart, if they want to keep it blank, whatever it is, whatever works for them. Some people even added a lot of memes
Okay.
to tell their story. So that was quite interesting. And inside generation, we continued with it. So you use Slido if you have a smartphone. Each story had like a single question. And again, around 20 to 25 insights generated on each of the stories. And then you end it with a networking event. I intentionally did this because the audience didn't know each other. But after the icebreaker and after showing the video, I could sense that they have, it's already like a cocoon, it's already a safe space. So people, once they become receptive, then you start with the stories. So I would like to break it as like part one and part two. So even if the audience doesn't know each other, you show those videos, you do that context setting, and then you can immediately see a change in the body language. And thereafter, you must just see the insights that people shared. They were amazing. And networking, even just so people, not everyone in a big organization knows each other, right? And now the stories have been shared. There's some tea, coffee, and cookies or cake arranged. 15 minutes, not more. Let people mingle, let people give like in person feedback to the speakers. A lot of people came to me saying that we want to be on the list next time. So that for me was a win actually, and they were like, we want to see this happen more often. So long answer, but I've tried to like cover the format and how is it that you could establish a safe space. So to summarize, if you know the audience very well, virtual uh, is good. But if the audience doesn't know each other, then it's good to be in a physical space, like a small space around 50 people, and the setting that I just explained.
Right. I'm already seeing this visualize in front of me, which is really nice. So both the in person, and I can imagine the way you would have, gone all out to make all these things happen. Awesome. Knowing the little that I do know you. But here's my question. All of this sounds good. And I'm sure this didn't happen without challenges, right? So tell us a little bit about maybe your top one or two challenges that, you really struggled with. And then how did you overcome that? Because obviously you made some successful events. So tell us.
Yep. So again, the number one challenge that I had was how do you get people to talk about failures? Because it's such a taboo topic, right? And when we received the nomination, especially from managers, though I'm not a big fan of going that route, I would want people to do it themselves, like nominate themselves. But because we were doing it for the first time, I spoke with people and I did the context setting. So I spoke with each individual, but the emailer they had is that, hey, your managers have nominated you, or I received your name as a reference from so and so. Let's meet, and I'm going to do some context setting. So the first question was, even before I did the context setting, is why do you want us to talk about failures?
Hmm.
And especially in front of the organization, more so. And then once I explained, I think the hesitation was a bit less. It was not completely gone. But once they saw it in action on the day, and especially after the insight generation, it
Hmm.
really helped. So when I was planning it for the first time, I had planned for 20 speakers if I needed 10, literally,
Okay.
because I knew there were going to be some drop offs. And there were a few because of certain reasons. Second time as well. So the first conference, I did it in September last year. The second one, I planned for 10 people because I needed five speakers. It was on International Women's Day. So I had planned a big networking event in the end. I had to cancel the bigger networking event because all 10 people said, we are in and we want to do it. And that for me is a win in overcoming that challenge because after the first edition, people saw it for themselves. Like
Hmm.
the first time is difficult because we are all human. We don't like change. But if you see it in action and it has amazing response, people are loving it. There's so much talking about it. And I had not promoted it a lot internally. But
Right.
the word of mouth, all 10 people agreed and we had 10 speakers. So that for me was a challenge, but we kind of overcame it.
Nice. I love this. And I want to continue asking more and more and more questions. But here's something that I would ask, especially because let's say someone like myself, if I am listening to this conversation now, and let's say I'm inspired, right, by what Rucha is telling me about this Fail Conf. If I want to go out in my organization and try this out because I want my leaders to, talk about failure, talk about the lessons from their failure in a format that Rucha just shared. How simple or how difficult is it for me to do that? Or can you give me like bullet point advice? How can I do this?
Yep. The first thing I would say is you've made the right choice
Uh-huh.
by even thinking of something of this sort. It's relatively easy. Think of it as like a small reading group that meets or a storytelling group that meets. A few things that I would suggest would be like if you're doing it for the first time, have a list of speakers ready up front. The second, third edition, you can open it for nominations, just so because the group, you would know how to set the context with them, and that will also give the audience an idea. So context setting with each individual, even it might need you sitting with each of the individuals to look at their stories. Because what I try and uphold is confidentiality. A lot of times you might have stories around the existing team or existing team members. So don't reveal any personal information, don't reveal any stakeholder information. Um, how is it that you mask those details without losing the essence of the story? Look for a diverse group of speakers. Try and have senior leaders open it. have a senior leader close it. I think that's highly inspiring. I started doing that for second edition onwards. And I have all the content that you need for a case. I have what is a fail conference, why is a fail conference. People can always like approach again the same format, things that you need to do before, on the day and after. Before is all the speakers, setup, context setting, on and promotions as well, because you need people, ensuring it's a good place, arranging some refreshments if possible. It's always nice. On the day, setting the context, breaking the ice, ensuring that that safe space is created, and then getting the stories. And after, you just promote it, capture the responses of people who met you quite immediately, because our memories are very short term. Then you want to do it again in 6 months, rather than going to like new people, just capture on the responses that you've received. So this is what I would say. But if further information is needed, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like I have everything set up, even like a process document. It's a suggestive document, of course. You know your context better, you know your organization better. So you might want to tweak it, but the basics are all ready, and which I'm happy to share.
Awesome. You've actually brought another angle in my head, Rucha. So, from what I'm hearing from you, and of course, I've sensed this in a lot of my own context, which is why I think I'm spot on, going to just say that spot on, because I see as a host and facilitator, that role is very critical. Um, are there any challenges or is there any specific advice you would give specifically, for that role to perform successfully? Would there be anything at all?
Yes, I think it's a lot of time investment upfront, but I made it a point to go through like each of the stories in person. Like when I say in person, like one to one, I also ensured like the other speakers don't listen to the stories of their co-speakers, because I wanted an element of surprise for everyone. But to answer your question, one of the things that I definitely ensured were, I sit with a person and understand the story and understand what we want to bring out of it. Because some stories can be very, very personal. And in my experience, I've had one such story, and this person wanted to share. It was very, very brave of them to do it. But I also wanted to ensure they don't go through the same experience again.
Hmm.
So I asked if they're fine. I made them aware again, it's going to be an audience of 50 people. Are you comfortable with it? Of course, there's going to be no recordings, but it's always nice for you to be aware of it. Then the other experience I've had is, it depends on the, I wouldn't say maturity, but understanding of the culture we are in. So sometimes if you're new to the culture, you've just joined right after college, you might not know the level of details you would want to share or not share, especially in a professional context. So that's something that I ensured, like sitting with every individual, then masking any stakeholder details, confidentiality. Um, these are the things I ensured that I do, like one to one. Mostly that was the upfront time investment and convincing people for the first time. Uh, for the role of a moderator, context setting is very, very important. I have a couple of videos. Do it in the form of a video, an icebreaker game, just talking through things. That is the crux of the event. If you don't do that right, then there's a very, very high possibility of people either not being prepared for it. So it's basically preparing the field before you get the speakers onto it. So that's very, very important.
Love that. That's very precise. And of course, for all our viewers and listeners, if you need any support and you are really ready to jump and try this out, Rucha is human, not a robot yet. So yes, you can reach out. And if you find it tough to reach Rucha, the link to her LinkedIn profile will be there in the show notes below. So of course, yeah, just click on it and reach. And for anything else, of course, just reach out to me. I'm happy to support on that. One other question, Rucha, before we close off. And I made a note of that as you were talking about, for those people who would like to jump on this, on doing this or running this Fail Conf. But what if people are skeptical about running a Fail Conf? And, failure is still a negative word. As a listener, as a viewer, I might say, I don't think it's going to work in my context. I'm not sure. How how would you, or what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say because you mentioned that it might not work, I would say that's still an assumption. So treat it like a hypothesis, right? Try to the very small group. Don't do it at an org level. Maybe do it with your team.
Hmm.
What's the worst that could happen? You'll fail, but then you learn from it. So my advice to people who are skeptical about it is try it with a small team. Do it the way you feel is right in the context of the frame. I wouldn't call it a framework, but the guidelines that we have. And it need not have a big audience. Do it over chai or coffee in cafeteria on a Friday. Just do it in a small setting. We usually gather, right, for like team events or birthdays. Maybe not on a birthday, but whenever you have like a team celebration, just gather together. Do it with a group of 4 to 5 people. See how if it works. See what their reactions are. Uh, I think seeing is believing rather than someone telling you. So do it for yourself is what I would suggest to people.
Yeah, I'm actually going to add to that. So I'm sure Rucha will go ahead and do some public event, and I'm coming to that question. So if you're skeptical and want to see an event, then of course I think you should just attend one of Rucha's events. Who knows, you might take away something totally different than what you expected. So give it a try. So based on that, Rucha, my final question to you. Is there any event that you've actually planned out in the next 1 or 2 months, something that we can all look forward to?
Good point, and I like your the way you've connected it as well. So we are indeed planning an event in Pune, in-person event around end of June, and we will put out posts around it on LinkedIn, and you can come and see for yourself. So either experiment, but if you don't want to do that, or even before doing that, you might want to come and see for yourself. Uh, I will not reveal all the details yet because we are working out on the speakers and the venue and a few other details. But once we have it, we would post it, and we would love to have people from Pune and around be there. Of course, for others, we will share what we learned and insights from it after the event too.
Awesome. Love this. So I am definitely going to look forward to this event. And for all those who can, please, please, please do, watch the LinkedIn space. I'm sure Rucha will put something out there soon enough. So yeah, keep a watch on that. So maybe one other question. I know I said that was the last, but maybe one other, Rucha. Given that I have you here and I don't want to miss asking you the questions. So if there was anything else that you probably thought, you have an urge to share with our audience on this topic of the power of failure, what would that be?
I've actually pulled out some quotes from people, and that might inspire the audience to do it, like in a smaller setting or in their teams or in the organization. Let
Awesome.
me just actually pull that up. And these are just a few from the hundreds of comments that I received. I've tried to pull a few. So one of them says, "It's amazing to know that people are facing these issues and no one is alone. It's great to share. It was such a human approach." Then the other one was talk more about failures and learnings. We've all experienced these, but having an event like this just helps normalize it and creates a connect as a community. And someone had said it's a good time to reflect and normalize failure. When you look back, you see that you're not alone in it. And that for me was very, very inspiring. And people were like, love the session. It was so honest, so empathetic, felt really good. But the best one was, we want to see more of these and we want to participate ourselves. So this is something that has helped me also scale it at other locations within my organization. And I'm super happy to say, like, London, Berlin, Heidelberg, and a few other locations globally as well have started these events. And yeah, for me, as a parting thought, I would say, like, a person who has never made a mistake, I feel has never learned anything. Of course, this is not my quote, but I strongly agree with it, right? If you're not going to experiment and learn, fail and learn, there's no point. I think there's a reason we have the ability to question and ability to learn new things, and we should leverage that.
Completely agree. Thank you so much, Rucha. I think that's a beautiful parting thought to leave this conversation with. So, to all our viewers and listeners, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this video. And if you did, do remember to like and subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will definitely see you yet again at another podcast and with another awesome speaker and topic. Until then, take care. I'll see you again. Bye.